Okay, awesome. So the first thing we're supposed to talk about is we need someone to explain the 3 diversity paradigms that are found in Making Differences Matter.
Okay, I can talk about them. I'm not sure that I really, if I'm being totally honest, I'm not sure I really grasped all of them. But the 3 paradigms that they talk about are assimilation, which is discrimination and fairness, the whole idea that we are all the same. And so every time I think of the word assimilation, I don't know if you guys are, I shouldn't even say this, but if you guys ever were Star Trek fans.
Yes! I thought that too.
I felt like the Borg. I don't know. Amy, are you a Star Trek fan?
Sorry, no.
Okay, so let me give you a little bit of background. In the Next Generation Star Trek, after the original, they came across a species called the Borg. And they were humans, but they had implants in their brain, and they were half machine, half human, and they had a collective brain, meaning when one of them slept, they all slept. And when one of them did something or learned of something, they all had a collective learning. So if one learned to read, in theory, they all read. If one was anxious and upset, they were all anxious and upset. They had a collective. It was like very much a hive. They were a collective purpose, collective thought, collective, and they would, if they wanted a new member in their hive, they would assimilate them into the hive. And so when I read about assimilation, I thought, oh, hey, welcome to the Borg. So yeah, it's very much that we are all the same. That paradigm of that we're all the same, and that we all think the same, feel the same, act the same, walk the same, talk the same. The next one was say it again, Margaret. I can't say it. The
differentiation.
Thank you, differentiation. So access and legitimacy. That in that paradigm, they celebrate the differences. So they enjoy that people don't think the same, and one person may think outside the box, someone may think inside the box, and someone may think standing on the box. And they're totally okay with that, and they want to embrace that. And then they've got the integration, and it's connecting diversity to work perspectives. So they look at it saying that we're all on the same team with all of our differences, not despite them. So even though we are different, even though we think differently, that makes us a better, stronger team.
Well, you explained those very well. You did good. That's what I got. That's what I understood.
So, yeah, that was really good. So now we're supposed to give an example of an organization that you have observed or worked for that shows some aspect of the paradigm you choose.
Well, I think I talked about the assimilation with the Borg. I mean, I've observed it. I didn't work for it, obviously.
That is a tough one. Well, my example kind of goes later with the stuff we talked about with Elder Bednar's talk about counseling with your councils, because I was just thinking about with our ward council, every time we meet, we have such a diverse group in our ward council, and everybody knows that their opinion is valued there, so it's amazing the things that people bring up and talk about because they feel comfortable in that situation. So I think that kind of goes along with the connecting diversity to work perspectives, even though it's not really work, it's a calling. But
oh no, it's the Lord's work.
Well, true. That's true. That is true. Yeah. So, and they all feel comfortable because they know, you know, whether it's a woman, a man, a younger a younger lady, an older man, you don't have to feel intimidated because the bishop says something, so that's the law. Everybody feels comfortable with their differences, and those differences help everybody to interact and work for the best good of the ward and the people, or fixing the problem that you're trying to solve. That's what I thought of.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah.
So can anyone think of anything for the second one? The only thing I think about is not necessarily a positive, but I guess that's why it's a paradigm, is sometimes I think we celebrate the differences, and because you're different, whether it be racially, religiously, personally, because your choices are different than the norm, not judging whether the norm is better or your choices are better, or the more unique you might be culturally, that we celebrate that and put that on a pedestal, and that somehow makes you better or worse than the average, the generic, or the cultural mutt, so to speak, the person that doesn't have that, the Joe Blow, English, white, Anglo-Saxon male who, you know, is just as good as everyone else, but because he's not that cultural different, or because he is mild-mannered and meek, we sometimes celebrate those that are so out there and loud and obnoxious. And so it doesn't just have to be a cultural thing. It's when we celebrate those differences, and by celebrating the differences, we limit access, or limit access to some and grant access to others.
Right.
I'm really trying to be politically correct.
I know.
Correct how I say that, but that is very much a paradigm for me. I struggle with, why can't everyone be judged based on whether they're, you know, how good they are at their job, and what they do or do not do, and not what they look like, not what they, you know, none of that. No one should get any special treatment because of the way they look, and they shouldn't get any special treatment because of the way they don't look. And I think we're such a society today of, we celebrate the differences so much that we create the differences. You know, we're teaching our children that there's a cultural divide. My daughter doesn't know that inherently. My daughter doesn't know that there's a difference, but when she watches TV and she, you know, sits down and we watch the news and they talk about the Oscar boycotting, and, you know, she wants to know what that is, and she doesn't understand that she sees them as the same. She sees their differences, but she doesn't use that to judge them as to who they are. And we were sitting there watching, and I thought, we're teaching this. This is what we're teaching to the next generation. That even though they had no say in what happened years ago, that they are different. And I don't want to teach my daughter that anyone's different. We're all the same regardless of color. And that's not the message we're sending. We're sending that if you're different, you need to be celebrated differently than those of us who are not as different as you are.
That's a good point.
So Melody Hobson says color blindness is dangerous. Do we agree?
No, I don't agree.
Color blindness. Yeah, I don't agree with that either.
Why?
Because isn't that what we've always been striving for? Ever since I was little, it's like, don't judge people by what they look like. Don't judge people by what they look like. But that's not the message we're sending today. The message we're sending today is you need to be color smart. You need to recognize the difference, celebrate that, and be okay with it. Whereas the generation, you know, the generational tide of 20, 30 years ago was they just wanted to be treated the same. I mean, I remember, I don't know if you guys saw the movie The Help or read the book.
That's a good one.
All they wanted was to be treated the same. They didn't want to be treated special. They wanted to be treated the same. And now it's like, especially, and I'm going to go back to the Oscars because that's, I don't know if you guys are aware that several African-American celebrities or culturally diverse celebrities are boycotting the Oscars because there wasn't enough culturally diverse nominees. Yeah. And all I could think of was your ancestors would pretty much be ashamed because they want you to be celebrated because of the color of your skin and not because of how well you did your job. And as an African American, I can't imagine that I would want to win an Oscar and be nominated because I was African American and because they had to nominate more culturally diverse individuals. That's not what the forefathers of the Martin Luther King movement wanted. He wanted everyone to be treated the same, and the best way for them to be treated the same is being colorblind, not color savvy. We should never see color. And now they want to see color, and they want to be separate. I mean, if I ever had a white Grammys, I mean, they can have the Latino Grammys or the Image Awards that are all you have to be black, or for you to be the, you know, for the Hispanic Grammys or whatever they're called, you have to be of Latin descent. But I don't qualify because, not that I'm a pop star, I'm not saying that, but I wouldn't qualify because I'm white.
That's true.
And if I ever said, oh, I'm going to produce a magazine that only white people get to be on the cover, I would be run out of town. Mm-hmm. But they do that all the time. And I don't mean they as in black people. I'm African. I'm not saying that at all. But the cultural aspect is we want to be different. We're okay to be different. We're separate from you. We're okay being separate, except when that separation is not what we want. We want our own stuff, but we want your stuff too. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I don't mean to be going on a tangent. It's just it's been on my mind a lot.
And that was good. You brought up that part about the Oscars, because that's the big thing in the news these days, of all these big stars boycotting, and then the talk back and forth between the stars that are supporting it, and especially because the host is an African American man, so they're saying, should he step down as the host of the show? People are saying, no, that's a big deal. He's the host. He needs to go represent. Then other people are saying, no, if he's a true African American, he needs to step down and protest with the rest of us. So even they're having the debate within themselves. It's a big topic, and I hadn't thought about that till you brought that up.
But then you look at these people that are being nominated or have been nominated at the Golden Globes or have won Golden Globes, and one of them, she plays in Empire. I can't remember her name. She used to be on Person of Interest, but she's now, no, is she on Empire? I can't remember. Anyway, she's African American, and she says it's not the Oscars. The Oscars are a representation of the lack of diverse casting going on in Hollywood. You know, it's not about, the good roles aren't going to those of diverse color. And that very well could be. That very well could be that they're looking at skin when they are casting certain things. But it's like the Oscars can't change that. And if they want them to make sure that there are diverse nominees, so what they're asking for is they're asking the Academy to nominate those people whose performance is not on par to the rest of the nominees based solely because they are of diverse culture. Right. And I would not want any part of that. I wouldn't want to get an award because I was white or be nominated because I was white. And that's what they're asking for, and that's scary, in my opinion.
That's true. That's true. And like, you know, even just talking about that with like the jobs, like there's companies that have those requirements that a certain percentage of their, you know, staff has to be Hispanic or Asian or whatever. So that's an interesting thing of, do you hire them because of their qualifications, or do you hire them to fill your minority percentage of employees? That's also another tricky area that a lot of people talk about. Like, are you hired because you're qualified, or are you hired because they needed a minority?
Well, so, in that talk that she talked about color blindness or being color smart, it talks about one of the guys that used to work for ESPN, and ESPN is incredibly diversified. Why are they incredibly diversified? Because there are people that are of diverse cultures that are phenomenal at the job that they did, so they come to the table with unique insights on their issues. But he was talking about the fact that, I can't remember exactly, he got pushback from some of the big wigs when he first started ESPN saying, do you want me to hire the African American, or do you want me to hire the person that's best for the job? And his comment was yes. Mm-hmm. And for him to be able to...
We're going to talk about that later.
Oh, sorry.
We're jumping all over the place.
No, it's okay. I'm just saying that does come. We do talk about that later in the discussion.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I'll talk about it later.
So the next question is color blindness the same as the assimilation paradigm?
Well, I would, just off the top of my head, I would think yes. If you're thinking assimilation, everybody's the same, then you would think of color blindness because you don't see the color, so everybody is the same. That would be my first thought process of yes.
But I think when you talk about assimilation as the top, as the only part, yes. But I think that, integration, that's what they always wanted. They wanted to be integrated in society. They didn't want to be, I think we do. I think we have a great opportunity to integrate. Realizing that we're all on the same team, bless you, that we're all on our same team, and we have differences, and we are still on the same team despite them. But our differences should be whether or not we are good at math, or whether or not we can speak clearly, whether or not we can problem solve effectively, and how we grew up, not based that. I don't think the diversity should be based on our culture, because I think that there's other things that make us different, even if we look the same.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Awesome. Okay, so what does Hobson mean about being color brave?
I thought being color brave, I thought she was referring to getting out of your comfort zone and talking about those topics that were uncomfortable, and making sure you made, whether it was discrimination or any of those issues, it was being talked about, and you were being proactive about trying to make a difference and improve that situation, even though it's hard.
What do you think color braveness would look like in the workplace?
I think standing up for yourself. If you see someone treating you poorly, even though you want to say something right off the bat, some people are afraid to do that because they're afraid of the repercussions, whether it's, coworkers thinking you're a troublemaker, or a boss maybe wanting to take it out on you for being a troublemaker, or saying, oh, you're just being overly sensitive. Maybe they're afraid of the backlash.
Yeah. Amen to that, Amy. I don't think that being color smart is on anyone's radar right now. Because if you were to walk into a place and going, you know, let's talk about diversity, let's talk about how you're different, let's talk about how I'm different. There are so many people in that, in my opinion, there's so many people in that workplace that would go, you know, all she's doing is talking about that I'm black, or that I'm Indian, or that I'm Hispanic, or that and by pointing it out, they could very well perceive that it's a racist thing, that I'm pointing out their differences, and that by pointing them out, I'm not being, that I don't think they're the same, and I don't think they're worthy. And I don't think there's such a difference between what she's talking about being color brave. We're not, corporate America is not ready for color brave, because we are such in a idea that I want to be different, and you can't tell me I'm different. Like, the whole idea that I can call someone of the same racial, ethnic background a disparaging name, but how dare anyone else use that?
Right.
So how, you know, you don't get to tell me how culturally diverse I am, or you don't, as a non-similar cultural background, you don't understand me, you don't know me, how dare you talk about it, because you don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And I don't think corporate America is ready for being color brave, as she puts it. But then again, I could just be pessimistic.
So the authors of Making Differences Matter explain that some managers are comfortable addressing problems with outright discrimination than more subtle diversity problems. Have you ever been in a team, group, or organization when one person's ideas or approach to doing work was hard for the rest of the group to understand because of a difference in background, experience, gender, race, or other something else?
No, never.
You know, I see it a little bit just with the differences between like a male and a female mind, how they work, you know. And I'm sure you guys, if you think about it, and I know when we do like activities at church and you have these committees and men have a certain way, they just want to do it this way, and you know us ladies, we want to make it a little bit more special and a little bit more detailed, and sometimes there's the friction of the guys, they don't want to put that extra little effort into it. They see it as very simple and plain and just do it and be done, and the ladies, you know, want to do the extra stuff. And I can kind of see sometimes where the men do not understand or want to appreciate the women's view on the necessity of the tablecloth for the lesson or the flower arrangements, and they kind of tease us about that. And they need to appreciate that that's how we are and embrace it instead of fight against it. That's just a small little sample. I mean, there's bigger ones, I'm sure, but that just was what popped into my head.
Well, and I agree with you on that. But I kind of took the question as that they can't accept or understand based on where they came from.
Okay.
And I don't get that at all. I just think people choose not to. I've never met someone who has, and that doesn't mean that, I mean, I was raised in California. I worked in California, so it's not like I'm this little sheltered Idaho person. I served my mission in Baltimore, Maryland. So I've never met someone who, based on the way they were raised in their background, in a work setting, that just didn't get it. I can see why they didn't want to get it and that they fought against it. But to grasp the basic idea that we would see things totally different, no. Now, if I met individuals like that, sure. Especially, you know, when it's, the only thing that makes me think is the KKK. some people are just born that way, and they, you know, their parents have taught them since their young age, and they just don't get it. But not in a workplace. I've never experienced that.
I can't say that I've ever the way that you're talking about it. So many companies still have a problem with outright discrimination. Have you ever worked for or a company where there were outright discrimination problems? Yes, I have. I worked at a drug company and they refused to hire men.
Say that again.
They wouldn't hire men. They hired only women. Even if the man was perfectly qualified, they'd say no because he was a man.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
What kind of a job was it?
It was like, some of them were pressing shirts, some of it was front counter help, but they wouldn't hire a man pressing it.
I mean, I guess technically Hooters does hire men. I mean, I've never worked there, but
There's weird because it's like these men would apply and they seemed like great people to work for us, but because they were a man, they didn't qualify.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty blatant. I have never experienced that in places I've worked. Not that I've seen. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but not that I saw that was obviously discrimination. Thankfully.
Okay, so now we're back to the ESPN thing. So, do we hire the minority when a person who is disqualified? He said yes. Do we believe that this is the right approach to hire for diversity? Why?
no, because it's selling them short. There are, if you want to find someone who has a diverse background, you can find someone that has more qualifications than someone who is not as diversely different. But if the only reason why you're hiring them is because they are diverse in nature, but their qualifications for the job are less than someone who is not as equally as diverse, then that's reverse discrimination, and you're setting back those of diverse cultural backgrounds by 100 years.
I agree.
Because they'll never get respect in that job if people think they got it because of their diverse background.
That is true. That is true. I agree.
Elder Ballard describes a church council. Does the ward council he describes follow the integration paradigm?
Follow the what?
The integration paradigm?
I think it did. I think
Yes.
I mean, I think back in the, my younger days when I first started showing up in ward council when I worked as the primary president, and it was so different then. It was more like the bishop and the bishopric talked and everybody listened, but I think they've come a long way now that I'm the Young Women's president and I'm in there, and it's amazing the different types of people that are in there and the amount of time that they spend asking for those different people's opinions and how can we fix this problem, what's the solution, and the amount of talking that I get to do in ward council now compared to back in the day with all these new talks that have come out, different training for the bishops and the council members. I think they've come a long way of letting everybody know that we're better as a group, as a team, and letting everybody's differences and different opinions work together to benefit everybody else. So I think it's come a long way, and I definitely think they're doing much better about the integration.
Well, and the whole idea that when Elderbell talks about the idea that everyone has an opportunity to talk. Everyone has an opportunity to put their, and they continue to talk about it until we don't just come to a consensus, but we all agree.
Right.
You know, we get that opportunity to rally everyone on our own point and really have buy-in for the idea, and not just come up with a random, majority rules.
Right. Exactly.
What are the advantages to a bishop counseling with the elders forum president, relief society president, primary president, and others? They have different relationships with the people they're serving. So, like, the relief society president is going to know what the relief society system needs and be able to relay that to the bishop, because the bishop's not in relief society to see what they need. So they provide that middleman thing for the bishop.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because like what they talked about. Oh, sorry, my clock's going on. They talked about how the ward council is supposed to be like a well-oiled machine. Oh, that clock. I'm sorry. And you don't want to wear out your bishop by him doing all the work and wearing himself out. He needs the rest of the team helping him out and doing the work. And that's how if everybody does their share or does their calling to the best of their abilities, that helps the bishop. And so he's not worn out and feeling that he has to do everything himself. So he knows if he's got a good Relief Society president and she's looking out for the best interest of the Relief Society, then reporting to him, it helps take some of his load off. And so he's not going to be burnt out as quickly. So everybody needs to kind of do their job and help him out.
Yes.
How could a bishop use the diversity of his council to help the board?
I think the idea of the integration, absolutely allow everyone to voice their opinion and take it into consideration and talk until everyone understands what the whole idea is. And it's not about, I think there's more learning in the process than in the decision.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's true.
So then, follow-up question. Have you seen a bishop or other organizations do this?
I didn't hear that last question very well.
Have you seen someone that's used integration at church?
Oh, hey guys, I gotta go. My daughter's throwing up, so I will. Next week, I will work on the Google Doc, and next week on Tuesday at 8, we'll meet in the morning, so 10 o'clock your time.
Yep,
Okay.
sounds good. Good luck. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Oh, poor thing. That's awful.
I hate throwing up.
That is the worst, I know. But hopefully she feels better afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 2 questions left.
Okay.
The Making Difference Matter article is, there is some value to companies in promoting a diverse workforce. Do you agree?
Well, I think there's definite benefits to promoting a diverse workforce. There's the obvious benefits that they talk about, how if you have a diverse workforce, you're going to obviously attract diverse customers or people to your business or whatever. and then you're going to have their different ideas, and I mean, the more diversity you have, the more diverse ideas you will get to use. So I think it's a big learning experience. So I think it's definitely a good thing.
What approach would you take to diversity as a manager?
Say that again.
What approach would you use to diversity as a manager? I think I'd use the
Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go. And I think a lot of employers are going to have to do some work to get to that level, because they're still probably stuck in the assimilation or the differentiation stage.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as they're working toward that, I think that's the best route to go.
Okay, that was everything.
All right.